처음 영상이 시작되면 화면에는 아무런 메뉴가 나오지 않습니다. 이때 영상 화면에 마우스를 대면 아래에 메뉴가 나옵니다. 만약 화면에 마우스 클릭을 하게 되면 영상은 멈추기 때문에 마우스 커서만 대셔야 합니다. 그 다음에 자막 메뉴를 클릭하시면 화면 중앙에 영어로 된 자막이 나타납니다. 이 상태에서 자막을 선택하기 위해 설정을 클릭합니다. 설정을 클릭하면 자막을 선택하는 메뉴가 나옵니다. 여기서 자막을 클릭합니다. 그리고 자동 번역을 클릭합니다. 그러면 다양한 언어가 나오는데 여기서 한국어를 선택합니다. 한국어를 선택하면 화면에서 보듯이 한국어 자막이 시작됩니다.
What an honor for me to be with you and be able to bring some honor more to Peter Drucker. I launched my career around a theory called disruption. And really, disruption is a theory about competitive response. If I'm going to do something, can I predict whether the competitors will run away from me or engage me? And it's been a useful enterprise to understand the theory of disruption. It's not a theory about growth. And so over the last number of years, we decided to try to develop a theory of growth. Much of what we know about growth comes from economists who come down from a very high level of abstraction into the economy. And what we've tried to do is understand what is it that causes managers to invest to grow. So I'd like to just summarize that if I could. We decided that growth comes from innovation, and the link between growth and innovation is investment. We decided that there are just three types of innovations in the world. The first type of innovation we decided we're calling market-creating innovations. And market-creating innovations transform a market where in the past the products were so complicated and expensive that only the rich have access to it. Market-creating innovations make those so much more affordable and accessible that larger populations of people have access to and can use the products. And in our more recent years, we called this market-creating disruption. A good example would be the computer. A mainframe cost $2 million, so only the largest universities and colleges could have one. The personal computer reduced the cost from $2 million to $2,000, so all of us could have a computer. And then the smartphone brings the cost from $2,000 to $200, so that billions of people around the world have access to the product. These kinds of innovations, market-creating innovations, if we look historically, were the source of nearly all growth and nearly all these are the source of nearly all corporate growth and nearly all national growth. And the reason is, these are the kinds of innovations that allow more people to have access to it. And as more people have access, you have to hire more people to make it and distribute it and sell it and service it and so on. So that's the first of three types of innovation. We call them market-creating innovation. Now, the second type of innovation we call sustaining innovations. And if you look out the window, most of what you see on an average day are sustaining innovations. And they also are very important to the economy because it helps your margins improve. These are products that make these are innovations that make good products better. So they make our markets vibrant and competitive. But sustaining innovations don't create growth. They're very important, but they don't create growth. And a way to frame why that is, if I successfully sell you a new product, you don't buy the old product. If Toyota convinces us to buy their new hybrid Prius car, we don't buy a Camry car. So sustaining innovations are important, but they don't create growth because they're replacative in character. If we do the new, we don't buy the old. So the first type of innovations, market-creating innovations, sustaining innovations. The third type of innovation we call efficiency innovations. Efficiency innovations help you to do more with less. And these also are very important for our economies because if we don't keep getting more and more efficient, we'll get blown out of the boat sooner. But by their very nature, because efficiency innovations seek to do more with less, they typically eliminate jobs, but they free cash flow because they're trying to do more with less. So these are the three types of innovation: market creating, sustaining, and efficiency. And as long as those three are in balance, the economy works very well. As long as market-creating innovations are creating more growth and more jobs than efficiency innovations take out of the economy, and as long as efficiency innovations are creating enough free cash flow to invest in new market-creating innovations, the system just works. And in North America, for the first 30 years after World War II, this system worked very, very well. But in the last 20 years, the system seems to have broken down. And this is my sense for why we're not creating more growth than efficiency innovations are taking out, and why the free cash flow created by efficiency innovations are not being invested in growth. What's linked us, and now what has taken us apart, I'm calling a new church for new finance. And I think that I call it a church of new finance because the people who believe in the doctrines of finance aren't even aware of how deeply they use their beliefs in new finance in good and bad ways. So this is the way I'm framing it that I hope will be useful. Prior to around 1980-ish, my memory is that when we were measured in finance, taught how to measure success, we used whole numbers like dollars or tons of cash, crude measures. But in order to be sure that we're using capital as efficiently as possible, finance has given us sophisticated measures to measure how efficiently we're using capital. And we use these metrics to measure how successful we are, not at growing, but in using capital. Now, almost all of these measures of how efficiently you're using capital are ratios rather than whole numbers. And the nice thing about a ratio is it's like a fraction. It has a numerator and a denominator. And finance has given managers now two levers to tweak in order to create growth. So one way I could get good measures for how well I am doing is I could be more innovative, create more profit, and put it in the numerator of the ratio. But what the heck, if innovation is too hard, I can reduce the denominator of the ratio. Either way, the metric goes up. So a good example of that is internal rate of return. It's a ratio. And so if I want the IRR to go up, sure, I could be more innovative, create more profit, put it in the numerator of IRR. But if innovation is too hard, the denominator is a metric of how quickly we get our money out after we put it in. And so if I invest in only short innovations that pay off in the short term, the IRR goes up. So it's kind of neat, isn't it? Managers have two levers that they can tweak in order to get IRR up. And we have all the rest of them are ratios that we use. The price-earnings ratio, RONA is another one. Well, we can go on. I think you know what I'm saying. So what's happened to us now is that we make free cash flow from efficiency innovations. And then our analysts look at this free cash flow, and they have to make a judgment. I wonder if we should use our free cash flow to make new markets through market-creating innovations. You know, everybody says that creates growth, but the problem with market-creating innovations is if we invest in that, it takes about 5 to 10 years to pay off. And so internal rate of return is going to go down. And if we invest in those kind of growth innovations, they're building companies, and that means we're going to need to put our capital onto the balance sheet. And we're all about taking capital off the balance sheet. So everybody can tell me that growth is important, but look what it does to internal rate of return and RONA. On the other hand, what if I use my free cash flow to invest in another round of efficiency innovations? Holy cow. If I do that, it pays off in 6 months to 2 years. There's no risk because the market is there, and it creates more free cash flow. It doesn't use free cash flow. So if you wouldn't matter, please, just this once, I want to use my capital to invest in another round of efficiency innovations, not market-creating innovations. I do it, and I get more free cash flow, and it pays off fast. Now I have another problem. That is, I have even more cash. What do I do with it? Darn it, if we invest our cash in market-creating innovations, RONA goes down, internal rate of return goes down. So I know I should, but I can't. So maybe just one more time, I'll invest in another round of efficiency innovations. And the machine throws out more free cash flow faster. And again and again and again, that's what's happening in our economy. And so what happens is, because through mechanisms that we can talk about later, finance has given us the metrics by which success will be measured. And although managers think that they're in charge, actually who really runs the show are the people who dictates the metrics by which managers' success will be measured. And those dominantly are RONA and one of its cousins, and internal rate of return. And if you want to know what impact this will have on our economy, just look at Japan for a minute. Because through the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, Japan's economy was growing faster than any economy ever did. And then about 1990, Japan's economy just went and flatlined. What happened? Well, in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, their system was fueling market-creating innovations. Toyota made cars affordable, Honda made motorcycles available, Sony made electronics available, Canon made available a printer in your on your Carenza. And because they made products affordable and accessible, billions of people around the world had access to those products, which before were beyond their reach. But starting in the early 1990s, for a bunch of reasons, they, like the rest of us, started to measure success with these metrics. And since 1990, by my count, Japan has generated only one market-creating innovation. That's the Nintendo Wii. But that's it. And as they invest in sustaining innovations that don't create growth and efficiency innovations that reduce employment and create free cash flow in Japan, there is capital everywhere the cost of capital is essentially zero, and they cannot invest to grow. And now the same problem has hit Europe and North America. In America, the cost of capital is so low that you have to pay the bank a fee to hold your money. And as a consequence of that, increasingly, we have capital everywhere. We can't invest to grow. And the reason is, if we invest to grow, the metrics that we've been given go in the wrong direction. And I hope we have an opportunity to talk about what we might do about this. But this is not a small problem. And I guess the way I would like to frame it is, I don't think that God came from heaven to attend a meeting on some mountain to say to managers, I want to measure success by internal rate of return. It was decided upon by somebody, but it was not God. And therefore we can choose to change the way we will measure it. And if we do that, we can change a lot. Because right now, the most attractive investment is to invest in efficiency innovations. The second most attractive investment is to do nothing. And then the least attractive is to invest to grow. Well, I hope that it's useful, and thanks for letting me have the time to do this with you.